Hello everyone, today I'm looking at Halo Infinite. After looking at the first major Bungie games, I feel like this is the one game where I really felt the impulsion to actually fully play and review. I did do Halo 4, but I might get around to that, reviewing that later, but I didn't really like that game, and I was so turned off and so disappointed by what I saw in Halo 5, I didn't even bother playing it. I watched a Let's Play, honestly, which is very much against my code of conduct with games. I find it very hard to watch games, frankly, because I feel like it robs the user of the true, full experience, the real experience. But Halo Infinite is a different kettle of fish. It is a wonderful game. Well, wonderful, is maybe pushing it, but it is a good game for sure. Is it the classic Halo we know? A little bit. It has traces of it, but it does, divulge and diverge in an interesting direction. What is nice, there are linear levels. There is now an open world in Halo. This game, there's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad, and mostly the bad has been the empty promises, things like split screen co-op coming to the game when that simply just was not the case at all. So now Halo now has an open world, and it's very, I would say, well laid out, very well designed. Again, a lot of issues that open world games run into is the fact that there is just not enough stuff to populate in these areas, and Halo Infinite understands that, and its map is relatively small. I would have liked to see other things. I mean, open world game design is getting a lot better with games like Tears of the Kingdom. I think something like caves and little explorable holes and hovels would have really benefited Halo a lot, but they simply weren't up to snuff to innovate past a game of that size. That being said, all the guns feel really, really good, and I do have to say this right off the bat, that the pistol in this game is one of the best it's ever been. I just have to rant and rave about it. It is wonderful. The pistol here is really a full combination of the Halo 1 pistol and the Halo 2 pistol, something I thought it would be in Halo 3, where you have sort of the punch of the original pistol with the scoped zooming, but also with rapidity of the Halo 2 pistol. And it makes it a very formidable weapon, especially in multiplayer, and it just feels really good. It has got to be one of my favorite pistols, maybe of all time, and that's a big thing to say. So that's one really good thing off the bat, and all the other guns are good. You now have like the Commando, which is like a fully auto, but kind of a slower fire rate rifle. You of course have the assault rifle. You have things like the Hydra, which is a new lock-on kind of device. You have of course the sniper, the rocket launcher, all the returning stuff. That's all good. There's some new Covenant weapons, a lot more brute weapons, and some, I guess, extra kind of, I wouldn't say Forerunner weapons, because they technically aren't Forerunner, but they're found on the ring, like Sentinel beams and that kind of thing, and the shock rifle, for example. Also, the beam rifle is replaced now with some kind of different, I think it's still a beam rifle, in any case. Yeah, I don't know. Halo Infinite, it does a lot of things right, but I feel like it was lacking a central vision. And what I mean by that is, I think it's great how they have the aesthetic of the brutes and the whole kind of lore of the brutes. And something just off the bat too is I think the writing is much better in this game. It's never really going to be as good as it was in the original Halo games, but it is much better here. And that really is kind of, with the main antagonist, Atriox, and I forgot the other one. It's kind of a mishmash of things because there's two kind of elite brutes that are the ones kind of running the show. One of them, I believe, is defeated, and the other one tries to basically avenge him. But Atriox is kind of the main one. And so, this is kind of after all the other events of the 343 games, and they land on yet another Halo where Chief and, well, okay, now we're getting to the bad parts. It's funny, this game has a lot of really good things and a lot of really bad things. And one of the really bad things is how they handle the new characters. So there is, quote-unquote, Cortana in this game, and I'm not sure if those of you who played Halo 5, it's the most stupid cliffhanger thing I've ever seen in the end of that game, where essentially Cortana is displayed as this rampant AI that is merged with forward technology and is now the main antagonist of the Halo series. And I guess that just all didn't happen, or something happened in between those games. I really don't care about Halo 5 at all, so I don't really know or care to know. But essentially what has happened is Cortana has remade herself or rebooted herself in some way. And now essentially she gave birth to a second AI. So this is like 343's Cortana. So it's funny actually, because her character is written very well, where she's a lot similar to Cortana, but different in a lot of ways, a little bit immature. She's a lot more kind of emotional, a lot more kind of sarcastic and matter of fact, and has a slight tweak on her personality that's very believable. There are some people who definitely did point out that her design is very boring. I mean, Cortana's original design in the first Halo was, I think, my favorite, because it was a mixture of blues and greens and this kind of alternating code running up and down her body. It was very interesting. And then she just kind of became blue after that. And then she just became like a normal human girl. And then after that, she has now become... she looks like she gets more and more real, quote unquote. Now she looks like literally one of the cadets. She's wearing like this uniform. And, there's certain parts where they close up on her face and it looks very kind of unnecessarily close and things like this. Her character really is great, though, but she does suffer a lot from, I don't even know how to put it, just a weird character design. The dialogue is fine, but the design is, I would say, questionable. It just seems kind of odd in little ways. Aside from that, we also have the new character who, again, I forget his name, but he's like the Mexican guy who's always complaining to Chief. And I think he's supposed to be like a comic relief character, but there are certain points where it was, he sees the guy like, oh, this is crazy, we're never going to make this. But he was almost a little bit too negative in some cases, and I found it sometimes funny where Chief in his way just gives a one syllable response to the crazy things they're doing, and the guy freaks out and starts going off and things like this. What I didn't like about him, though, is that he was always sometimes very negative. He never actually believed in the Chief sometimes, and he actually reprimanded him a lot, like he's his mom or something. And so, I mean, there were times when there was a little bit too much, but overall his character sometimes was very funny because he was always in disbelief, and it was only because of the contrast to the Chief, who was so self-confident in everything that they had to do. No matter what the odds were, no matter how bad the situation seemed, the Chief always adapts, and that is his character. I think 343 finally understood that about his character, that it's like no matter how bad things get, Chief adapts and he fixes and he saves the day regardless. So he's not a bad addition. They have this one kind of other AI or something that's in line with Atriox. I don't remember anything about her. I almost forgot she existed, but she's one of the villains in this game. And forgive me if it's not Atriox, it's one of the other brutes that I just can't remember right now. And so he's kind of, and there are other brute chieftains and other covenant, and so essentially these are the banished. So the banished are essentially this group of covenant that refuse to, of course, bow down to, it was Escharum. Yeah, okay, Escharum was the other one. Got it. So he is the one who's kind of leading this, and so you with UNSC and the covenant and the banished are marooned on this last Halo ring, and they're still trying to kind of wage war against humanity, regardless of the prophets. And so this brute chieftain is kind of the main antagonist, and his dialogue is pretty good. He's pretty intimidating. They do a little voice thing on him. He talks about kind of the honor-bound system of the brutes, their religion, their priorities, their society, and how they viewed the humans as worthy opponents and foes, and also while trying to crush them into dust and all that good stuff. So there is definitely a sense of, a well-done kind of culture and villain and antagonist to go up against that makes it feel, the stakes are fairly high. And of course, the story evolves where, Halo is going to activate again and Cortana has to stop it again. And there's this whole conflict with the Chief and can he trust Weapon, or is she going to go rampant like Cortana did? And that's a really interesting thing to tackle where, Weapon, because she's a lot younger. And again, I just hate that name, Weapon. It is so stupid. She could have done almost anything else. They could have called her Cortana too, and I would have been better with it. But Weapon is just the dumbest thing. Anyway, so with weapon, she says, she's a lot more emotional. So when Chief tries to, there's a scene where Chief has the button and he's about to press it to basically terminate weapon, and she gets very upset, obviously, and very emotional that you would terminate me within a second, and you kind of discover why, because Chief literally has trust issues now because of Cortana going rampant and all that other stuff from the previous games, which is kind of understandable. So there is actually some kind of chemistry, some kind of an interesting relationship between Chief and this new Cortana. It's handled sometimes a little clumsily, but the chemistry is actually there. It's some kind of semblance of something, rather than nothing. So I have to give it credit for that. And that's kind of all the new major characters. I think what I should pick up now is just all the little gameplay things. So now that Halo's open world, they've added, little Easter eggs, and it is very easy to find them all, via guides or by scanning. That's another thing that's new in this game. I think that's very funny that, of course, with old school games, color theory, displacement of objects in the environment is very easy to tell what was important, what wasn't, because of the limited, technology. The blue thing is the blue thing. The red thing is the dangerous thing. It was very, fluid and easy to tell what was what. And it's funny that in this game, they have a special scan issue or scan feature that allows you to scan the environment, and it'll highlight things in blue and yellow and all those primary colors to let you know what's actually useful in the environment, because there's just so much stuff now. So, modern gaming is inventing now its own solutions to the problems it's created, but it works. It's similar to, I would guess, it looks like how Death Stranding works, essentially. So there are things you can pick up, like audio logs from the Banished, the UNSC, other Spartan groups, and other things like this. There's also these forward operating bases you get, which activate as kind of the recycle towers, if that's the right word to use. Essentially, where you go in, you defeat them, you use. Once you defeat them, you basically take control of them, and then you can get the map area, and then you also get certain upgrades. There are also things called bravery points or something in this game, or honor points, where for every action you do in the game, you get a series of those points. And then when you go to your FOB, forward operating base, you can use different loadouts once you have enough points. So this could be things like special vehicles, like a Mongoose that has rocket launchers on the front, which is a lot of fun, and also certain weapons. And so it'll tell you exactly how much you need for each thing. Of course, another huge main feature is the grappling hook. Yes, everyone is jumping on the stupid grappling hook because it is kind of the implicit or explicit solution to open world game navigation, where you have these huge, massive environments filled with nothing to interact within them. You need to get around quickly, even when you're on foot. And the grappling hook is the solution to that for a lot of games. Even Horizon Forbidden West, I think, has a grappling hook now. So everyone realizes that with these big open areas, with things that you don't need to look at, you need to get around them quickly. And the grappling hook, admittedly, is a lot of fun. It doesn't serve just as a use of terrain navigation, where it'll pull you towards something, but it'll also pull you towards enemies and it'll initiate immediately upon, hitting them. And it will also pull things to you, like weapons, or of course the very iconic power cores. Power cores, those little glowing cubes or rectangles that have been in the Halo series for quite a while, especially since 3. Everyone remembers them in multiplayer. These things that you shoot them and explode, you can now actually hold these and chuck them, and they are a lot of fun to throw. In fact, a lot of people who do think about Halo Infinite, the iconic kind of aspect of it are these cores which you just chuck, and you watch them sail through the sky, arc down, and blow up an enemy encampment. They're a lot of fun, and they are a lot of fun when they blow up unintentionally. There's a lot of cool ones where there are plasma-based ones, fusion-based ones, things that will blow up and cause chain reactions of grenade explosions if there are grenades nearby, which can lead to some very funny, interesting things. Aside from the grappling hook, though, you can swap that out for a series of other kind of devices, including a proximity sensor, a hologram that duplicates you, acts as a decoy, and also a deployable shield. All kind of staples where they're keeping equipment kind of in the Halo DNA. But frankly, I never found anything as useful as the grappling hook. It is the de facto thing that should be there, and honestly, we don't even need the other ones. Frankly, we could just remove them because the grappling hook is just so versatile and so good. But I'm glad that they're there in any case. And of course, you can also upgrade all of these things to make them more potent. When you upgrade the grappling hook, it sends an electric shock through an enemy when you grapple them, and then you can melee them easier. So it's interesting also how they handled the campaign missions, because they all take place essentially, besides on the ship, they take place in the open world. And so if you leave the mission area, that mission will actually reset, and then all the things will kind of go back to normal, and then you can just reinitiate it from your menu and from your map, which is a pretty smart solution. Again, I feel like this game is really recreating that feeling of the first Halo, or trying to recreate that feeling of the first Halo when you enter the second mission and you kind of step out onto Halo and you can drive around in a Warthog and explore this weird ancient ring. The only issue is that there are a lot of goodies and weird things to find and kind of discover, but the problem is they kind of follow a very simple formula. There are enemy bases, and inside enemy bases there are ammo caches and Spartan cores. And Spartan cores are another cool thing that let you upgrade your grapple hook and armor and health and all that kind of other stuff. But in general, there's not a lot of discoverability. I always felt that the first Halo was a very mysterious, weird thing, because you had no idea what it was. You had these strange, alien structures that morphed into real life looking, canyons and natural rock formations and all this other stuff. And it was only after investigating you realize this is actually a completely unnatural space. And so that element of mystery and discovery is pretty much absent. This is just kind of a grinding kind of thing. There's no interesting stories or side things to uncover. There's no things like a vault, like in Fallout, where you're trying to vault that would be, have its own contained story. This is just, go here, find the thing, kill the guys, and rinse and repeat. So again, I'm very conflicted on this game, because it does a lot of things right, and then it just keeps repeating them past the point where it's really appropriate. So it's just so many things that it does right, but then they keep doing it, which makes it stale. And I want to like this game, but it's so hard. I am so very much conflicted on it. I think I might as well talk about the multiplayer quickly, because I'm on that point. I do enjoy the multiplayer, but unlike the other Halo games, I find myself playing it for 4 to 10 matches at a time. I really feel like it kind of gets rinsed and repeat a lot. Outside from that, I think another thing about it is the fact they added these voices and voiceovers now, these AIs which you can buy and customize, and they would say like enemy taking the hill, and they'll have some weird, really sarcastic thing, and it's just a weird thing that doesn't belong in Halo. And Halo multiplayer has had a weird trouble experience ever since 343 took it over. On the multiplayer itself, it's good, it's fun, it's fast paced without being crazily fast paced like Halo 5. But of course, the one thing that is kind of frustrating about it is does fully acknowledge the whole kind of I don't know what you call it, not loot boxes, but the whole store, the whole microtransactions. They're all there, they're all present, they're all happening essentially. And this is just something that's part of modern gaming. I guess we have to swallow this pill, and it's just something that I don't like seeing. It's not nice. It's pseudo predatory. They have season passes, and God, I mean, so this is where things get into a very difficult, odd, frustrating area where essentially for a long time they couldn't get Match EXP to work. It was still in beta, and all these very basic things that other AAA multiplayer games can accomplish, let alone past Halo games. So it was absolutely extremely bizarre that as a Halo game developer, they were unable to get this to work for so long, and they've only had like 2 or 3 seasons for almost the year or plus that the game has been out. And they also opened up the game to free multiplayer, so if you can just basically download the game and literally anyone can play, and hopes to get more players. And I don't know. Again, it's not bad, but it's just very very shoddy how the quality is at certain places, and then it doesn't get fun. It's like it feels like a rinse repeat, and it's very okay. It's nothing breathtaking, it's nothing super addicting like the past Halo games. It's all passable. This whole game is like a passable Halo. I did spend time in campaign getting all of the aspects, all of the kind of upgrades, and all the little Easter eggs to find, and I really feel that almost really was not worth it. But I got them anyway, and it's one of the few games where I might actually regret doing all of that stuff. But, it is fine. There are other interesting things where you'll have bounties. There'll be certain Covenant, creatures or things like this. Grunts or elites that are basically the superpowered version of those normal units, and once you kill them you get a special weapon which you can then use elsewhere, and these might be things like a Covenant grenade launcher that shoots twice as many grenades or something like that. I'm also not sure why it's called Halo Infinite, especially maybe you play it forever, or just it's a play on Marathon Infinity. I'm not really sure, but the game itself is well-rounded enough, but again, nothing super amazing. I mean, 343 has really stumbled ever since Halo 4, and especially Halo 5, and they just cannot get this formula right because they're not Bungie. And I told everyone it's not going to be as good as Bungie, and no one wanted to listen, and here we are. But yeah, if you're a longtime Halo fan, you come back to it. It's not a terrible experience, but it is not the original Halo. It's okay, but it's not amazing. It is fun to ride around the world in tanks and warthogs, and you can get a bunch of Marines. I think my favorite thing, actually, that I had fun doing on my own in this game is I basically took a bunch of Hydra rocket launchers and gave them all to the Marines. And while the Marines are not exceptionally good at doing lots of damage, they're always very accurate. So I had this full warthog full of like 5 to 6 Marines, all with Hydra missile launchers, and they were just obliterating everything in our path. It was actually a lot of fun. It was really cool that you could mold the game to fit that kind of narrative, or to fit that design. Also, another issue I guess I could bring up is the fact that the environment itself of Halo, and I know it's supposed to be Halo, but it is still only one environment in an open world game, which I find very kind of silly / funny. Like, it's, you have the green hills, you have the stalactite rocks or whatever they're called, or igneous rocks rather, and it's just kind of the same thing over and over again. It really lacks any variety. So I feel like this is a good game, but it feels not finished or fully realized. It feels almost like half the scope but with twice the content, if that makes any sense. A lot of bloat, if you will. I think one thing that I do also really appreciate about the Halo games is the co-op mode, and there was online co-op, I believe, for this game, but I was waiting to play local co-op with my brother, because we always do that for every game we've played, except for obviously Halo 5, because they just didn't make it. And that's another really big issue why I don't like this game, is that the split screen co-op has always been an option for this series, and they didn't launch with it, but they said, it'll be ready in a year. And I was like, okay, let's believe them, let's think Halo is back, let's do this thing and have put our faith. And it was like a year and a half and 2 went by, and they said they're not doing it. So it's just like, well, they've gotten their money, they don't care, they can't make a good product. And the more infuriating part on that aspect is that some guy demonstrated it was actually relatively easy to actually launch and initiate the split screen functionality, but it was just an issue with how the game saves, but you can actually glitch it to actually do what they want. So it seems like it's not a huge, impossible, super onerous task. They just don't want to do it and focus on multiplayer instead, which also doesn't make any sense because they haven't done anything with multiplayer. So again, like there's so many things where I'm so conflicted, where this game does things really, really well, and then it does things absolutely horribly. And 343 has just made a track record for themselves of just being lazy developers. I'm not sure. I know the one thing that makes sense is that they hired their visionary director 3 times on this project at least. And despite all that, the way the game has turned out as it has is honestly kind of shockingly good, frankly. When you take into consideration everything that's happened, it's still kind of exceptionally good. It's not a Final Fantasy 15 by any means. It's a full realized product. It's just not as amazing as it could have been, I think, is what a lot of people feel. One thing I guess that is borrowed in from Halo 5 is, you can zoom in with every weapon, which is honestly kind of nice. It gives you a little bit of, distance on your enemy, even though with weapons that can't zoom in. Again, I absolutely adore the pistol in this game. It's very cool. There's different skins you can lock for your Spartan, obviously. There's a lot of microtransaction-y kind of things and season passes and all that crap associated with that. But the basic skins you get for your guns is pretty decent, and it actually carries over to single player. So if you're going to play your campaign with some crazy warped gun, you can actually do that, which is kind of fun and neat. Again, I feel like this game should have been what Halo 4 was. It's like a new approach to a classic Halo design, and it doesn't really break a lot of rules and plays it kind of safe. That's really why I can't really get on board with this too much. Essentially, it's very kind of generic Halo, even though Halo is exceptional in itself. One thing I actually really love that they added that I didn't realize until I went back to other games is the hit marker. Once you kill an enemy, it shows a red X and a sound, and I don't know what it is. I think they also have something similar in Battlefield 2042. That activates my monkey brain. I don't know why that works, but it does work, and it's a great little addition to have, and I'm glad they did add it. Another thing I do think I should mention that I really also appreciate is the amount of ammo in the game is decently or relatively limited. I really enjoy it when games don't give you just this huge arsenal of ammo, because in that case you're going to use the same weapon over and over again instead of picking up enemy weapons, figuring out how they work, figuring out a certain play style with them. And that kind of the whole Halo formula is about Chief being able to be the super soldier who knows how to use every weapon and all these things. Maybe another thing I might mention is maybe I'm just really good at the game or something, but I found that the normal difficulty was pretty easy, and I found myself playing on heroic a lot of the time, and even heroic being actually relatively easy. But again, like, the core gameplay is fun. It just feels like we were just getting started with something good, and then it ends. So I mean, I probably said this quite a few times, but this is really landing in the middle of the road for me. It's decent, basically. It's a decent Halo game, finally, after like a decade of them trying to make a good one, right? But yeah, this is kind of the end of the Halo franchise right now. There's not been another game planned. I know there's the Halo TV show, which is, an abysmal wreck. They keep releasing more and more media around video games, which does not ever pan out well. I can think of a handful of examples where it has panned out well, but the TV shows and everything else about it just seem to be absolute trash and garbage and not very good at all. Another thing I really love about this game is just the clambering, the movement, the mechanics. Everything feels fluid. The sprinting doesn't feel super abused as it was in probably 4 and Reach, I guess. Everything feels right, like you always move at the right pace, and the environments are good and passable, and yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I can really say about the game, and it has kind of a satisfying conclusion, which again opens up the series for more games. That being said, how do I feel about the series? It's never going to be Bungie's, Halo. It has to be 343's, and if this is the product they're making, it's honestly not bad. It's just not great either, but it's kind of giving me some weird hope. But at the same time, they barely got multiplayer off the ground. They have not shown long-term maintenance support, which is the standard for AAA games now, where the game launches and then they might mod it and patch it for maybe a couple years until just moving on to the next product, but they're not obligated to fix everything in the game and make it optimal. I am just really, I would say the word is disappointed. Not by the game itself, but what came after the game. The fact that they kind of made these promises, didn't follow up on them. They are, a division of Microsoft. There's even rumors now where, Xbox might even sell its exclusives. Halo could end up on PlayStation of all things, which would be insane. But yeah, I just don't feel that this franchise has, a lot of hope. I'm like cautiously optimistic, but I don't really see a big notable change that would make everyone kind of flock back, and this whole new concept that is revolutionary like Halo was back in the day. And that's kind of like what we have to live with. But yeah, I mean, I hope they do well. I hope that Microsoft does well, and I hope that Halo gets, the attention that it really deserves. And I hope that, of course, Bungie, whatever they work on, is also rivals Halo. And it just, not even in the gameplay itself, but the story, the dynamics, the whole sci-fi element. It's one of the best sci-fi Western elements and franchises we have. And I really hope they, respect it and appreciate it and make it work. And with all that being said, I guess I'll see you guys later. Bye.